Hey guys, Chad Wesley Smith here. I wanted to answer some questions that I was asked the other day on Facebook. So the first one was from Mark Pasternak, and Mark asked what a lot of people ask me, is how am I able to hit such higher numbers in competition than I do in training, all right? And there's really three parts to that answer. The first is the organization of the training. The second is the mentality that you bring towards your training. And then third, of course, is the mentality that you bring into competition. So the way the training is organized, for me, we have a lot of information out there about it. Definitely go into Strong 360, check out our Building a Hypertrophy Block video with Dr. Mike Israetel. Go on my YouTube, watch Creating a Strength Block with myself. But really what it comes down to is training from higher volume and less specificity towards lower volume and more specificity as the time goes on through the hypertrophy block, into the strength block, and then finally with the peaking block, which I'm about to enter into my own training next week. Um, and really when you're doing that, if you're training with pretty high volume and training hard as you need to be, um, you're not going to be able to hit PRs in the gym that would exceed what you'd be able to do when you're peaked. All right, if I squat hard on Monday, how am I going to, squat an all-time lifetime PR on Friday? And then if I squat hard on Friday, how am I going to be able to come back and do that on Monday? It's just not going to happen, and it doesn't need to happen because those lifetime PRs aren't for the gym; they're for competition. All right. So when you're doing that, of course, and you're training hard, you need to make sure to manage your fatigue, and I do that through rotating between heavy, light, and medium days, taking a deload week every fourth week. But those 3 weeks when I'm on, you got to be really on. You got to be training as hard as you possibly can, pushing towards that maximum recoverable volume, your MRV. So then, and of course, with a properly designed peak, that's just great optimal management of the fitness fatigue relationship and setting yourself up with the highest fitness and lowest level of fatigue going into a specific day, the competition day. And if you haven't read Scientific Principles of Strength Training, go and do that. Tons of great information in there. If you haven't read my article, Complete Guide to Putting Your PRs on the Platform, go read that. A lot more in-depth programming information in there for you. The second part of things that I think really helps me carry over well the competition is not putting all my, that I'm focused in training on building my numbers, not always testing my numbers. All right. So you may see training days with me where it looks like, oh, I could have done 20 more pounds or 30 more pounds or 2 or 3 more reps with the weight. All right. And of course I miss weight sometimes. All right. Everyone's going to, but I'm really trying to avoid true 10 RPEs or the potential of missing a lift in the gym, because missing lifts doesn't build your strength, making them does, and missing lifts kills your confidence, all right? And confidence is such a big part of being a great powerlifter and being a great competitor, all right? So make sure that you're setting your training up for building, not always testing, all right? And the next thing that you want to consider is that competition mindset, all right? And something that's extremely powerful for me is the power of expectation, all right? Through my entire powerlifting career, I've always had this great carryover in competition from training. The same thing happened for me in track and field when I was throwing shot put. I was always throwing 2, 3, maybe even 4 feet farther in a meet than I did in training. That is my expectation, is to outperform my training results in competition. If your expectation is to perform less than what you've done in training, that's probably going to happen. All right, you are very, very likely to manifest manifest your own thoughts and your own expectations. So set that high expectation for yourself. Of course, it can't be unrealistic. It can't be, well, I squatted 500 in training, so I'm going to squat 600 in the meet. It's not going to work like that. All right, but be realistic. Create a plan to set you up for that through properly designed training blocks, and then have the expectation that you're going to exceed your gym performance in the meet where it counts. So the next question I have is from Colt Boyd, and Colt asked about how to prioritize strength and speed work for a team sport, a field sport athlete like a football player or basketball player. All right. So Charlie Francis, great, tremendous coach, way ahead of his time, huge influence on the way that I think about training athletes. Used the phrase that weights follow speed. All right. And Charlie wasn't just talking about chronologically, but he was also talking about from an energy expenditure standpoint and how the training is balanced. So, of course, you want to lift after you sprint, jump, and throw and do those high velocity, high intensity field-based drills or your sport practice, right? But if you have a great day sprinting, right, a great day jumping, a great day throwing, and you're hitting PRs out there or a particularly strenuous practice, you don't need to do as much in the gym. You shouldn't do as much in the gym. All right, another Charlie Francis analogy is he likens the central nervous system to a cup. All right, and every stress we impose on our body through training It's going to fill that cup up to a varying degree. And very high stress activities like a maximal effort sprint, a PR sprint, and same thing with jumping, and of course lifting, it's going to fill that cup up to a greater degree. So if we really filled the cup up a lot out on the field, we don't have as much space for it in the weight room. All right, so that means you're probably going to need to cut down the volume a little bit in the weight room, as volume is going to contribute to fatigue much more than intensity will. All right, and if you have a really tremendous day out there on the field, maybe you're going to cut down the volume and the intensity a little bit. But weights follow speed, because that field-based work is going to have a much higher transfer and be much more important to the athlete's success. The weight room is a great complement to that, but it's a facilitator to their movement. All right, it's to build their strength and power for those field-based drills, so put the priority on those. All right, and then the last question I got is from John Sheridan. John asks, what are some things that I think have really built the Juggernaut brand? All right, I get asked this question quite a bit too when people want marketing advice. Obviously, we have a very big following, and that's great, and I'm very proud of that, but I am by no means a marketing expert or guru or anything like that. I think why we've been very successful is because I'm not a marketing expert or marketing guru, so we didn't have the option to use marketing tricks. All right, so what we've had to do is stay committed to the idea of helping you guys, our readers and viewers, as much as possible, and continually answering the question, how can we help you improve as powerlifters, weightlifters, CrossFitters, coaches, strongmen, physical therapists, so on and so forth. All right, and in all those different fields, I know that I don't have all the answers, so I've brought in a great team of experts around me: Dr. Mike Israetel, Dr. Quinn Hennock, Brandon Lilly, Colin Burns. The list goes on and on. All right, of guys who can showcase their expertise and answer your specific questions. So I think staying committed to that idea, all right, that the number one thing we want to do is bring you great content, and in that kind of avoiding controversy for the sake of controversy or clickbait kind of articles like that. Certainly if we feel strongly about something and that may be a controversial thing, we're going to stand by our beliefs. And putting a fancy, a clever title on an article, if that's going to get more people to read good content, that's great. But we're not going to do it just for the sake of that. All right, we want to bring the best information possible to you guys from real experts who are living their craft every day. As athletes, as coaches, as therapists, as researchers, people who are really living it. They're not just out there on the internet talking about it, but they're doing it every single day. And that's what I think has made us grow so much over the last 3 years. And hopefully that's what's going to help us keep growing over the next 10 and 20 years.